Good evening, and welcome all Pagan Explorers. I hope you are doing well on this evening. And welcome to tonight's horror story. It is one from my childhood, and it is one particular horror story that is really quite chilling. So I would advise those of you who are of a scared disposition not to continue. But if you are feeling particularly brave, then carry on by all means. And before I get into tonight's tale, I'd like to remind you to please consider subscribing to my channel and hitting the notification bell. Now, I shall begin my tale of terror. And tonight's tale is named Bits and Pieces. My story begins in the year of 1965. It is within an American prison, and a gentleman inmate has been sentenced to death because of his most heinous of crimes and murder. For this person had chopped up all of his victims into little tiny pieces. They did not know how he did this, but they were very, very horrified. And so the inmate in cell block 4 awaited his fate. But he seemed calm when the guards came to get him. And even as he was walking the long walk down the corridor to the electric chair, he seemed of a very, very calm position. He wasn't at all scared or wasn't at all nervous. And they buckled him in and wet the cloth and put it on top of his head. And the vicar who was in there said, "Any last words?" And he said only this: "Any man or woman who dare disturbs my cell block 4 will meet a grisly demise." And he said those words hauntingly. The mayor called and gave them permission to throw the switch, and they did. And he was put to death. Many years had passed from that awful time, and a young hotel enthusiast bought the building and decided to do it up into a wonderful hotel. And he hired a lot of maids, a lot of kitchen staff, and a nighttime and a daytime receptionist. And one particular night, a few months into their opening, a young receptionist was sat in doing the night shift. And this particular night, an old couple had come in and checked a room. They were very, very wealthy, and they were told to be looked after. And so they were escorted up to their room, not knowing their fate. And it would be their last night. And so the nighttime receptionist picked up key for bedroom 4 and escorted them up to the room. As he settled them in, He explained to them that there was a dining table waiting for them so they could have refreshments and something to eat. And they did so, and then they soon retired upstairs watching the television. As the nighttime receptionist sat and settled at his desk, he was going through what the guests had eaten and what they'd taken and had from the minibar, and he was told to log that night. But he was also warned that there may be pranksters about making some crank phone calls, and he was told to be warned of this. And so he was quite well prepared. And that night, an hour in, the phone rang all of a sudden. He picked up and introduced himself, and the phone started crackling and making some very weird noises. And off in a distance, in a radio type of voice and haunting kind of voice, it said, bits and pieces, go and check on your guests in room 4. To which the hotel night receptionist said, pesky kids, don't keep calling here tonight or I will call the police. And he put down the phone quite angrily. It came to the point that night where he had to do the rounds for the rooms, and he had to let each guest know that the lights were going to be dimmed in the hallway, but to ring if they needed anything. And as he came to room 4, he checked on them and made sure they were okay. And they seemed to be okay, settled and watching the television in their bedroom. The night receptionist then went downstairs and settled at his desk once again. Another hour and a half passed that night, and he was just getting to a point of catching up with his work when the phone rang again, and that haunting voice and haunting crackle came through again. Bits and pieces, go and check on your guests in room 4. To once again, the hotel receptionist said, do not bother me. How dare you? I'm warning you, this is your very last warning. Do not call here again. Otherwise, I will phone the cops. And he furiously slammed down the phone. And once again, he did his rounds again. Carried on through the night and did his rounds, the receptionist. He went upstairs and he checked on the guests in room 4 to make sure everything was okay and if they needed anything. To which the guests replied, no, we're okay and we are going to now retire, so please do not disturb us. And so he respected their wishes and bid them a good night. The nighttime receptionist then settled in for the night. And then, as he sat behind the desk, an hour and a half later, once again, the phone rang. And once again, more violently and aggressively, the voice came through. Bits and pieces, go and check on your guests in room 4. And don't you dare hang up the phone on me. And he said, look, I'm not going to tell you now. That is your last warning, and that's it now. I am phoning the cops. And he slammed the phone down, and then he started dialing 911. And then the police came very quickly, and the night receptionist explained what had happened, and he said he saw a flash outside, to which the cops ran outside and checked around the building, But there was one thing they noticed upstairs, that the room light in number 4 had come on. The night receptionist had gone upstairs, and what he had found was the door open, and he found the 2 guests in room 4 chopped up into bits. The coroner had been phoned, and even the coroner was shocked by what he had found. And so the receptionist that night was let go and fired from his job. He did try to apply for another job, but on the interview he didn't turn up, and in fact for months he was nowhere to be seen, for he had gone missing. I hope you enjoyed that story and wasn't too scared by it. And I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you for watching, and I hope it did not scare you too much once again. And please be sure to check out my other social media channels, which will be in the description box below. But for now, take care and don't be scared.